Hi viewers and welcome to the channel, and today's the fourth in the series of the Learn Python with FreeCAD. So this is a beginner's tutorial to learn the basics of the Python language but from a FreeCAD perspective. So in video 3 we left with an actual input from a user, so taking an X, Y and Z coordinate from the user and using type conversions. So we learnt about types, we learned what a string is, what a tuple is, what an integer is, what a float is, and learnt how we can use those and the problems we come across with string types and how we can actually times a string type by a number and not get an error back. And we have to be careful of that. So if we're entering strings, we need to convert them. So when we convert them into an integer or a float, depending on what the string is. And then we can use that in our programming. And for this one we wanted a comma separated string, so an X, Y and Z string coming in, and we need to deal with that. So the way we deal with that, we split it on the comma, and that produced a type called a list. So that's a collection of elements. Doesn't matter what they are, integers, floats, we can have them mixed in there. And then we converted that to a tuple because we wanted to use that as a vector in the FreeCAD to move a box. So that was in video 3. Today we're going to be looking at operations, including assignment operations, comparison, logical, membership as well, and identity operations. But for now we're going to keep it light, we're going to keep it simple so we can actually get into FreeCAD and start doing some Python programming. So I hope you enjoy this video, and let's make a start. If you like this video, please hit a like and also subscribe to the channel. I also have a Ko-Fi site where you can actually donate to my contributions to the community, and that's at ko-fi.com/mang0. So we're going to be using the Python console again to explore the language. It's a great way of exploring that language. And we can try things out in here that allows us to see what the language does in a safe environment. So we're going to start with the mathematical operators, also known as arithmetic operators. So we've got basic operators in there, such as the plus, which adds something to a number. So you can see 3 plus 1 is 4. So this is the operator here, plus. We've got the minus, which is subtraction. So 3 minus 1 is 2. Obviously we can do it with such things as floats and mixed types like that. Just remembering that you can do stuff like 3 plus 1. Well, not that one, 3 times 1, which is 3, and 3 times 5, which is 5 threes. So watch out for types. So the times is 3 times 5, there we go, 15. So we've got a times operator in there, and times is not a cross, it is an asterisk. Now division is a / like that. So 2 divided by 1, 2.0, so you can get a float back. 5 divided by 2, 2.5. Now there is a nice little division operator called a floor division. So you can use 5 divided by 2, and that brings back an integer. So that's rounded right down rather than up. And it's floored, what's known as floored the value. There is exponents in there, so 4 times 2, like so, you get 16, 2 times 2, 4. So we've got exponents in there as well. We've got a modulus, which is 2% 2, or 2% 1. 3% 2, etc. So you've got the modulus there. Now we can do that with variables as well. So if I create a variable called a and equal to 9, and a plus 1 means that will equal 10. If we did b equals 10, so a is still 9 because we only had a plus 1 on there. We didn't actually assign that to a. So a equals 9, b equals 10. Then we can go a plus b and we get 19. So if we wanted to assign the value to those variables, we use the assignment operators. So the equals which I used there, so a equals 10, that's an assignment operator. So we've made a equal to a 10. We've assigned 10 to a. Now if I did a plus equal 1, we're actually adding 1 onto a. So if I did a now becomes 11. So you can see we got no feedback when I did a plus equals 1. Got no feedback there because we're doing an assignment. We're actually making a equal something. So a now equals 12. And we can go the other way, a minus equal 1. So a equals 11 now. And a times equal 10. A now equals 110. So we've got those there. And remember that if we just reset a and let's make b equals 8, then we can do a equals a times b. So do a on there, that's 80. So now we've covered the basic assignment operators. There are others in there. I mean, we've got divide equals, mod equals, and floor division equals, etc., etc. We have got comparison operators as well, and these compare. So if a equaled 1 and b equal 1, then we can do a equal b, and that comes back as true because a and b are both 1. If I did a exclamation mark equals, that's not equal, and that will come back as false because they're both equal. And we use these in if statements, but you have to be careful because we're using a double equal rather than a single equal, so it's quite easy to get those muddled up, and it's quite a large source of bugs in your programming. We also got things like smaller than and greater than using the chevrons or triangular brackets. So if I did a greater than b, then that would be false. A smaller than b, then that also would be false because a equals b. So if we used x equals 0 and y equals 10, and our p equals 5, we know that x is smaller than p, which is true, and y is greater than p, which is true. But we'll compare those two together, so we can go x smaller than p and y greater than p, then that comes back true. So we can check to see p is in the range between x and y. So this is a logical operator, and this is a comparison operator. There are a number of comparison operators. There is doesn't equal, so x doesn't equal y, which means they don't equal. We've got the greater than, as I said before, we've got the greater than equal to or the smaller than equal to, and those are all operators in there, and you'll use those extensively throughout the Python language. The logical operators we've already touched on, and I haven't placed anything in there, so I'm going to get syntax error. And we've got or and not. So we touched on and there, and you can use or, which returns a true if one of the statements is true. So we can say x smaller than p or y greater than p, rather than having them both there. So if one is false, then the other one can be true and it'll still pull back a true result. And we've got not, so we can actually reverse a result from there. So if I said not true, that will pull back, making sure the true is uppercase. There we go. Not true is false, and not false is true. So you can see how you can switch those around. Now before I go on to the other operators, I want to include another type that I didn't touch on before, and that's the range. So a range is a type, and you can go 0 to whatever the top of the range is. So 0 to 10 will bring back a type, a range type. So if I did list range, then 0, 10, what will happen is that you can see what that's filled with. So you've got a sequence there, it's a sequence type, 0 to 9. So you're saying where the range starts at, which is 0, and how many you want in there, which are 10. So 0 to 9, there's 10 items in there, and they will all be in that sequence. Now that range can go in steps as well. So we're going 0 with 10 in there, but with steps of 2. So if you do this as your topmost value, so we want to go all the way up to 10 minus 1. So it's always n minus 1. So we got start index, the end, and the step. So you can see we've gone 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. Because the top value is 9, then that's not in steps, so we'll go one below, which is the 8. Now the reason I want to tell you about this is because the next operators I want to go into is membership operators. And that's the in and not in. So you can actually say if something's in something. So remember we've got this range here. So if I said free in range 0 to 10, then that come back as a true. But if I did free in range 0, 10 and 2, that will come back as false, because we're looking at this range here if we're doing steps. With the range also you can change the values. So the start value we can go from 4 to 10, and we'll just list that out. So I'm just casting that as a list, and you can see we started from 4 and going all the way up to 9, so the top amount minus 1. So not in, so free not in, and then range 0 to 10 will bring back a false because it actually is in there. So we're just reversing. Remember when we said not, it just reverses. So where the range and the membership operator comes in is within for loops. And we'll get into for loops in another video, and that'll be in a looping video, but I'll just show you that quickly. So a for loop, if we do for x, so the variable in range 0, 10, and use the colon, that'll open up a loop. So this will go around from 0 to 9. And we can see that if we do space print x and hit enter again, you can see that it's looped through all of those. So in a for loop, we can loop around and do commands and operations within that. So we're saying that each time we go around, we're setting X to the next member inside the range 0 to 10. In is often used to find stuff in lists as well and tuples. So if we add a tuple, A equals, and remember that the tuple we open with a bracket, and we can do hello 1, 1.3, 6, etc. in there. So A is now a tuple. Then we can say that hello in A, and that'll bring back true because it's found hello in A. So we're using a member, so it is a member in A. And that is for all lists, all collections, everything that has multiple items in there we can use in. We also got not in as well, so we can say F not in A. So we're saying, do we have the string value F in A? If we used H, that will also come back as true because H is not in there. We've got hello in there, but H is not in there. But using something like 1, which is in there, that'll come back as false. A at the moment is a tuple. So if I did type A, you see it's saying class tuple. So we can do type A is str, str int float, and that'll come back as false because it's not an str, it's actually a tuple, which comes back as true. So what is, we've got is not. So those identity operators are there for you. There's only 2 in there, is and is not, the same as the membership operators. There's in or not in. So we're going to show you an example of using that. So at the moment we've got our macro up here, and I'm going to create a new document in here. So file new. We're just going to clear this Python console, clear that out, and we're going to close it. And let's get rid of unnamed 1. We just got 1 there. Let's go into the part and place the cube again on there. So what do we currently have? So currently we're getting the X, Y, and Z position from the user. We're going to do some checks in there. So because we're taking the value as a text value, and we're not doing any text conversion on here, we're allowing FreeCAD and Python to sort it out ourselves. The only thing we're doing is doing a split on the comma. We're going to do some checks in there. So I'm going to come in here, and what I'm going to do is pull in those values. So rather than saying my tuple is converting the val split to a tuple, I'm going to put in here split values equals val.split. And then my tuple is a tuple of the split vals. So what we've done, we've just made another variable. I'm going to use a rem mark in here. So I'm going to use the hash to rem these out. You can't see these because I've got them in white. So we're just going to concentrate on these. This makes it easy for me to explain what's going on without you getting confused with these 2 lines below. I'm just going to output these now. So FreeCAD.console.print message. I'm going to output split values. Split values. There we go. So we do need the report view. So let's bring that in. View, panels, report view. So anything that's output from here will output into our report view. Just make that a bit smaller. And I'm going to also rem out the my box because we don't need that. We just need an input value and we need to output that value after we split it. So let's execute that and see what we get. And I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. And we get back 1, 2, and 3. Don't worry about this, this is just the time. So we're getting 1, 2, and 3 in square brackets. So we know we've got a list, because a list is in square brackets. What I'm going to do now is use something called a spread operator. So in brackets, I'm going to put X, Y, and Z. This isn't a tuple. We haven't defined X, Y, and Z. We're actually defining it at the moment. So X, Y, and Z equals split values. And what we're going to do is print out X. And let's see what we get. We're using 1, 2, and 3. And look what's being placed in here. So let's just clear this and do that again. So 1, 2, 3. So 1 has been placed in our report view. What this does, this spread operator, so there's another operator for you, a spread operator, it actually splits out the values. So we have 3 values in here, and what we're doing is taking those 3 values and spreading them over X, Y, and Z. So if I output Y and execute that, then 1, 2, 3, then we get 2. See the 2's down here, it's just appended it on there. And we'll go one more, and we can see that X, Y, and Z split values, too many values to unpack, expected 3. One, 2, 3, and we've got 2 in there. So let's put a little check in there to make sure we only get 3 values back. So what we're going to do is use an if statement in here. Now if goes hand in hand with the operators, especially the logical operators and the comparison operators. And for that we're going to explore that if statement. So for that we're going to come in and view panels, Python console, and we're going to assign up A to a list of values. So we've got 3 values in there. So we use len command A, and that will say how many items that are in there. So it's 3 items. If I then use then A equals 3, that'll come back as a true, and that's what we want. Now if we use a conditional in there, so if, and then use then A equals 3, and then the colon on the end, then it will ask for some additional parameters in there. And I can go space to indent that and use print A. Hit enter, and that will print 1, 2, 3 if the length of A equals 3. So we've introduced the conditional statement there. And also we've introduced something called white space. Now in Python, white space does matter. You've probably by now found errors that are coming up if you've accidentally placed white space in your code. So for instance, if I try to run the code with a space in front of this, we go to macro and execute, it will come up an error. So you've got in here unexpected indent. And if we're looking on here, we can figure out where it is. And it's saying on 4.1. So it's saying on line 4, character 1. So come down, there's the 4th line, and there's the first character, which is a space. So we just remove that and come up to macros, execute macro, and then it allows it to execute. Let's cancel that. So let's clear this and clear the Python console. So we're going to use an if statement in here. So we want this split. What I want to do is check if the length of the split values equals to 3. So place a colon on the end, hit enter, and then you can either use tabs or a couple of spaces. I prefer to use tabs, so anything that is tabbed over, it will do in this if statement. If this is not true, it will bypass the tabbing and go down to the next statement. So we're saying if length split values equals 3, then we want to split those values, and also we're going to output what y is. So when we execute this, macros, execute macro, then type in 1, 2, 3, then we've output to the console there 2. If I clear this and macros, execute macro, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, then nothing happens, but we don't get the error. What we would do in here is use an else. So if else, then what we're saying, if this is true, we'll do this one, else, colon, we'll do the following. And we'll place FreeCAD.console.print message. So I'm going to place max min length must equal 3. Let's execute that now. So macro, execute macro, 1, 2, 3, get the output. Let's clear that, right click clear, macro, execute macro, 1, 2, and then we get the error message. So that's a quick introduction to operators, and starting with the if else. So what we'll do with our next video is place this cube on screen, and we'll define a boundary, and we'll stop that from moving outside that boundary. And that'll be using the if statements, the operators, and some of the FreeCAD commands in there to change the color of the boundary and output some messages. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to my site, and also I have a Ko-Fi site where you can actually donate a few pence or a few pounds, dollars, or whatever your currency is, and that's at ko-fi.com/mang0, and there you'll be able to help me fund my site, and all the money that I actually get from any funds will actually get pushed back into the channel. Thanks a lot for watching and subscribing. I'll see you next time.